Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us today for some NcontractsManager user training. My name is Amber Merrow Jones. I'm our contract services subject matter expert here at Ncontracts. So I'm basically your go-to gal for all things NcontractsManager related here at Ncontracts. Today's training is suitable for all users that are non-admin users. So we won't be going over any of the admin-specific functions today, but you'll get a good grasp of what's going on with your NcontractsManager module as a whole. To start off with, this is going to be the screen that you see when you first log into NcontractsManager. We call this your dashboard. This dashboard is completely customizable to you. That means that all users can have their own custom dashboard. It will not apply to all of your users across the board. We're going to go over really quickly some of my favorite widgets here. Firstly, the events calendar. This events calendar will literally show you every single contract email notification set up in the system by either yourself or one of our contract team members. All of those contract notifications will appear on the date that they're set to go to you in blue here on this calendar. If you saw any blue links here, they would be active. You would be able to click directly on that blue link, go right into your summary. You also have the ability to add custom events here in this calendar. By clicking on this plus sign next to custom events, you can title your event, describe it, and choose the date that it'll happen. Let's say you guys want to get together with the rest of the employees at your financial institution and talk about what contracts you're going to upload this month. That's a great thing to put on your event calendar. The next that you see here is your recent contract notification widget. It will show you the 10 most recent emails coming out from the system. Those came in the last 30 days and those that are forthcoming in the next 30 days. We also have our contract widget, which is another one of my favorites. It will show you the most recently added contracts, those that just most recently expired, and those that are forthcoming for expiration, and then the grid view favorites. We'll get to grid view closer to the end of this training, but grid view is my favorite way to report on your contracts in this system. The actual grid view tab will allow you to set up templates to run reports and save your favorites. Any favorites that you had saved in that grid view tab would show up here in your grid view favorites. You could click that link and go directly into grid view, directly into that layout that you set up. If your screen does not look like this and you'd like to add additional widgets, feel free to do so by scrolling all the way down to the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, clicking Add Widget. This Add Widget dialog box will pop up. Any widgets that you do not already have here will, on your dashboard, you'll be able to drag and drop and just let them go wherever you'd like them to lay. Go ahead and click Close when you're done, and feel free to move these around in whatever order that you'd like. Make sure if you want to see this layout next time that you log in, you click this Save Current Layout in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Our next on this tour is your Contracts tab. This is literally where all of your contracts are going to live. We refer to this on your left-hand side here as your filing cabinet. I want you to think of your contract filing cabinet as two filing cabinets in one. The one that you see when you automatically click that Contracts tab is going to be your active filing cabinet, the filing cabinet that holds all of the contracts that you currently have with your vendors. You also have one that is working for you behind the scenes. That is your archive filing cabinet that we'll get to in a little bit. You have a couple of very rudimentary search options here at the top of your filing cabinet. You can search for your contracts by vendor name or contract name simply by typing in the first few characters of either the vendor name or contract name and hitting enter, and you'll see all of those contracts populated here. You also have some filtration options that are very, very helpful. If you click down here on this down caret next to by vendor, you'll see all of the ways that you can filter this filing cabinet view: by contract name, by vendor name, by beginning date, by contract date, which are not necessarily the same thing as we'll go over in a moment, by termination date, upload date, and last modification date. If you are going to be uploading a lot of contracts to your system, I recommend filtering by upload date. It's incredibly helpful and really good at keeping you organized when you're trying to see the newest things that you've uploaded. Let's go ahead and filter by upload date. Everything at the top of page 1 when you have filtered by upload date will be the oldest things that you've uploaded to the filing cabinet, and everything at the very bottom of the last page in your filing cabinet will be the newest contracts that you've uploaded. Let's just go ahead and get into uploading. That's one of our most frequently asked questions here at Ncontracts. Anytime that you see this green plus sign, think you can add something. That's a really good rule of thumb to have going forward. To add a contract to your filing cabinet, click this green plus sign in the left-hand corner, and you'll see an upload dialog box. You have two options, but I really recommend with sticking to the upload multi-contracts on this side. It does allow you to upload more than one contract at a time, though you are not required to. To select a contract for upload, go ahead and click the Select File button. Then go ahead and find out where this contract lives on your computer and select it to add. You have some things to do now. First things first, here's a good rule of thumb. Do not change your contract name at this juncture. You'll change it in a couple moments. For instance, if someone asks you, hey, did you upload version 39,470.5219 for this specific vendor, but you have changed the contract name at this juncture to whatever the legal name is of your agreement, you won't easily be able to find it in the filing cabinet. If you remain with the contract name as you see it populated here, that means you're using the PDF name. That means I can go in on the back end, do a little digging on my side, and see if you've uploaded that agreement based on the actual PDF name of that contract. Your next step is going to be to pick your agreement type. All of the agreement types that you have listed here will be the agreement types you set up on implementation. Keep in mind, if you have other agreement types that are not default, if you are a newer client and you are not using default, do not select default at time of upload. Default is a standard agreement type that the system will automatically generate, and it only has two categories. Those categories that will never change: primary, purpose, and terms. So you might be missing out on the opportunity to properly summarize key data points into those categories you guys chose on implementation. So go ahead and pick your agreement type. We're going to go with vendor agreements for the time being. Now, something that is new since that upgrade to that North platform for NVendor is that the only thing that communicates between your NcontractsManager module and your NVendor module will be your current vendor list. That means all the vendors set up in your NVendor module that are in the current status. So your prospective vendors and your former vendors are not going to show up here. So make sure, first things first, if you know that you've got a contract that maybe is for a former vendor and you just want to get it in this system to archive it, that you double check that you have changed the status in your NVendor module, as I am about to show you. Also, if you've got a new contract for a new vendor, make sure that vendor has been added in NVendor first. How do you do that? Well, if you have NVendor, then that means that you initially had to log into your NVendor module and click that contract tab to go into your NcontractsManager module. But if you want to go ahead and add a vendor, come down here to your NVendor logo, click on that button, come up here to your Vendors tab, and if it is for a vendor that already exists in your system, but that might be prospective, go ahead and click this All button. This will literally show you all vendors, no matter if they are current vendors that you have services or products with, vendors you used to have products with, or vendors you're considering signing a contract for. If it is an existing vendor, go ahead and search for that vendor here, and then make sure once you've searched for it, you've clicked on it. Always continue without saving so it doesn't save only that vendor when you log in and click on vendors next time. And then come in, double check that status, click that edit button up here. Make sure that in this status area, current vendor is selected. Don't panic though. If you do need to change them to current temporarily, you can always come back in, follow these same steps, and go ahead and mark them former or prospective if need be. If, however, you know you need to add a new vendor, go ahead and come up in here for me. Click this new button. Go ahead and fill out the requirements. Any required fields in NVendor will be red next to it. So you'll be required to name your vendor. You don't have to describe it at this point, but make sure that it's current and go ahead and assign it to a relationship manager. If you are not going to be the one that will own this vendor relationship going forward, you're not the one that's going to be responsible for coming in here and risk assessing your vendor and all that good stuff, make sure that as you see in a moment, once you've saved this vendor, that you've let that vendor relationship manager know. You will automatically be prompted about whether or not you want to notify the vendor relationship manager. If it's you, go ahead and click no thank you. At this point, your vendor will now be saved in your NcontractsManager module, and you'll be able to select them from the drop-down menu. All of your vendors will list here. Make sure after you've selected your agreement type that you go ahead and select your vendor type. Also, if you are uploading more than one agreement at the time and you're uploading the same kind of agreement, the same agreement type, or for the same vendor type, we do have a batch apply to all function. Make sure you're being very careful with that though, and you're only using that if you know the agreement type or the vendor will be the same throughout the contract. What does the C2 button mean? C2 literally means that you guys are going to see to this contract. You guys are going to be the ones populating the summary information on your own, sending those emails and so on, and our contract team of experts is not ever going to go in and perform contract services on this contract. They're not going to summarize it and they're not going to review it for you. So it's just an instant notification to our team that we don't have to review this contract for you. Once you've completed these steps, go ahead and click that OK button. Because we've already filtered by upload date, we'll see that our newest contract is right down here. When you click on that contract, it brings you automatically to that summary page. And this is what your summary page looks like. You have one more step to go, and it's making this contract searchable, tagged, and reportable in our system. This is a vital step to helping you maximize your contract management. Go ahead and click this edit button here. Every time you want to edit something in this summary page, this is going to be the button that you want to hit. Go ahead and click this edit button, and now you have some non-required steps with some good best practices to follow. Double check that you've selected the correct agreement type. If you haven't, that's okay. You can click that edit pencil, and it'll show you all of the different agreement types, and you can switch that out if needed. Also, go ahead and double check that your main vendor is correct. Again, if you did not get the main vendor correct on upload, that's all right. Go ahead and click this pencil right here, and this will bring up your vendor list as well. The next thing that you can do is always add it to other vendors. If this is a multi-party agreement, you are not restricted to just coding it to one vendor in our system, and you can add as many other vendors as you need simply by clicking this pencil again and selecting any other vendors that you need in the system. The next non-required but good best practice step is to fill out the responsible party. What is a responsible party? Unlike a relationship manager, this person might not be the person that is in charge of the vendor relationship as a whole, but might just be in charge of this one singular piece of a contract binder, whether it be that this person is only responsible for this product and it is an exhibit only for this product, or an addendum for a product, and so on. If you begin typing here in your responsible party area, you will see all of your NcontractsManager users there and easy to select. Feel free to add as many responsible parties as you want. This does not restrict access to the contract to only this responsible party, but it is a column that you can select in grid view if you want to find out what's going on with one person's particular contract. The next fields we're going to go over are required. When you get to contract name, this is where you're going to be changing the actual name of your contract. Please make this the legal name of your agreement. How do we find this? Good rule of thumb, come up here, click this View Document button, and it's going to literally populate the PDF version of the contract that you've uploaded to the filing cabinet. Go ahead and drag this to your other screen. Always use two screens when you're being engaged with your contract, and find that legal name of your agreement. I also always recommend to my clients that here in parentheses after the name of the agreement, you plop that date of the agreement in there. Let's say my test vendor does not let you auto-renew this contract every year, and instead they will issue a new agreement for service every single year. If you happen to just use those search functions up there in your vendor filing cabinet and you search by vendor name, you'll just see a bunch of agreements for services and you won't be able to easily find them. If you put that date in there, it'll make your searching capabilities a lot more robust. Your next step very important, is to fill out your contract date. What does that mean to you? Well, that's entirely up to your financial institution. I have many clients that choose this date to be a variety of things, whether it be the actual effective date of the agreement, whether it be the date of mutual execution, whether it be the actual beginning date of your agreement. Whatever you guys choose, make sure that you choose something and stick with it. Kind of create a best practices internally at your financial institution going forward for every time you upload a contract, that you're always using the same time frame as your contract date. For example purposes, we'll go ahead and use today's date. Your next requirement is selecting a main division. If you recall in implementation, divisions are those organizational buckets that those contracts fall into. Whether you guys have it organized by vendor, by department, by branch, whatever, this is going to be a requirement to get this contract saved in the system. So go ahead and select your division. Yes, divisions do restrict access. If you are a user that is either a reader, an editor without delete, or an editor, you will be assigned to divisions by your admin users. Those divisions will be the only contracts you're able to see and access in the system. So make sure if you're the one that's adding this, which means you have to be either an editor or an editor without delete, that you're putting these in the correct organizational bucket. Again, just like vendors, you are not restricted to just one division, and you can add other divisions if need be by clicking that pencil to your right. Next best practice is putting something in this summary field. This summary category will not be able to be saved unless something is in this field. So we always recommend here that you pop your legal name of your agreement here and the parties between whom that agreement exists. Even if it's more than one vendor. And finally, the last party will be your financial institution. Now you're ready to go ahead and click the save your work. Every time you want to save something in the system, you're going to want to click this green check mark. It is very close to this no smoking symbol, so make sure you're really being engaged while clicking this so you don't lose all of that hard-earned work that you just completed. Once we've got this saved, we are good to go. This agreement can now be searched, reported on, and that's awesome. Your next step is to always put something in this term category. I want you to go ahead and pop back into that PDF you have on your other screen and start getting actively engaged with that contract. Start looking for the term provisions in that agreement. Don't just do a Control F for the word term. Look for a term header because almost always there will be term information hidden throughout that contract that you might want your reader of this summary to know about. Go ahead and click that edit button and start putting things in here. It's always the best practice to find out what that initial or current term is and put it here graphically for your reader to see. And then go ahead and reduce all that legal jargon into a quick and easy thing to read for your reader. So we'll go ahead and pretend that our agreement expires 5/1/20. It's obviously for a year. The agreement will auto-renew for additional one-year terms unless the bank cancels in writing at least 30 days before the end of the then current term. It's also always a good rule of thumb to cite to where you found this in the actual agreement. Just in case you have to go to that vendor, you have to bring up a provision because maybe they breached something, maybe they billed you for longer than the term actually was enforced for, what have you. You want to be able to actually tell that vendor or your board where they actually need to go to in the actual paper of the contract to find these terms. So we'll go ahead and pretend that we found this in section 2 on page 1, and now we're ready to save our term category. We've basically got a really quick and easy to read term in there, so your readers of your summary will understand what's going on with this contract and how long it's going to be alive for. Next critical step is to getting to where all of the magic happens, and that's in this agreement term category. It is always a subcategory to term, so make sure you edit that term area first, and then come in here and click the pencil. This is very date and numerical specific, so please be cautious and please make sure that you're entering the correct date. This beginning date field is where I want you to actually put the actual beginning date of your contract. Whether that be the contract says that it starts on the day that you receive your first invoice, whether it's on a go live date and someone at your financial institution actually has that date, make sure you're putting that actual beginning date here in this agreement. The next thing you need to do is go ahead and select that initial term. Even if you're out of the initial term and you're in a current term, always start with your initial term. You have a free text box here for numbers, but you also have a drop-down box that'll show you some different options here. Days, weeks, months, years, exact date, which I recommend using if it's a wonky term. Let's say this term is for 37 months and 4 days. Make sure you're using a date calculator or figuring out what that date is and actually typing that exact date in here. Or perpetual. That is if your agreement is ongoing with no end date. This agreement will continue in perpetuity until either you or your vendor cancels without cause, whatever they so choose, based on whatever date notice that the contract specifies you have to give. But this time we know our contract lasts for a year. The end of the initial term will automatically populate here for you. And since we are still within the initial term, but we're also in the current term, it has brought that date forward for you. The next thing to enter is your notice period. Your notice period will be that 30 days, the time in which you need to notify that vendor that you are going to not auto-renew. Keep in mind, in the 5 years that I've been graduated from law school and I've been working with contracts, I have rarely seen your initial notice period and renewal notice period be different. So if your contract is silent and it does not specify that you have to terminate 90 days in the terms 2 through 5, and then 120 days in terms 6 through 9, make sure that you keep that initial notice period and renewal notice period the same, because that is how the system will calculate what we refer to as the date of interest and what will push those email notifications out to you. What is a date of interest? As you see here, 4/1/2020 is our date of interest. That is literally the 30 days before the end of the current term that we would have to notify our vendor in writing that we did not want to auto-renew this contract. That date of interest is going to be the date in which all email notifications from this system come out surrounding. So let's say you have a sequence set up that we're going to take a look at in a moment. It will all be centered around that date of interest date, which is why that notice period is so important in this category. We'll go ahead and put 30 days in here as well. We do know that we have a renewal term of 1 year. It's going to keep renewing for 1 year periods, and we know that it's going to auto-renew. So we're going to check that yes button here. We know that right now, we have not yet approved this for auto-renewal, so just keep thinking about this, but we're not going to touch this at this juncture. We do not have a specified number of renewal terms. This isn't a lease. This isn't a software license agreement that specifies that it'll only renew twice, for example. We then will know that this is going to renew automatically for 1 year terms in perpetuity. So we're going to want to go ahead and click this perpetual button. That's going to tell the system that it's going to keep renewing, keep auto-renewing that term, keep getting emails out to this financial institution about when that contract is going to end. Now that you've got this set up, you are good to go to set up your email. The next step over here is to click on this email button. If you see that this envelope is blue, that means no email exists yet. You'll see once we've set this email that this envelope color will turn red. Go ahead and click that email button and then come up here to the add notification. You'll see that we have a default subject here at Ncontracts for all term-related emails. It will be vendor name, contract name, division name. But you are not required to use that. If you want to mix this up a little bit, that's fine. Go ahead and uncheck the use default subject area. Go ahead and fill out whatever subject you'd like to have in your email. The next best rule of thumb here is repeat, repeat, repeat. Repeat what you put in your term category. So let's go ahead and let our reader know the initial term expires 5/1/2020, and then the agreement is going to auto-renew. Awesome. So we've got our email language in there. Our reader now is going to know exactly what is going to happen with this contract and then maybe come in and do some work that we'll go over in a moment. Your next step is to select your recipient. You'll see several options here. All of your distribution lists that you set up on implementation will be here to select from. All of your users will also be here for you to select from. And then you will also have the ability to add an email address here. Keep in mind, if you add an email address and that person is not a user, when they get this email and they click on the link to view this summary, that link will take them to nowhere for security reasons. They do not have access to your module. I do have a lot of clients that will set up a contract term email. That way they can just get to all those contract notifications one day of the month, because you will end up getting a lot of notifications from the system depending on how many contracts you have in your filing cabinet. Next up, select your delivery sequence. You have several options here. If you have the notification type of standard notification sequence selected, note your date of interest. All of those sequences you guys set up on implementation will be here. We always recommend that you have two, one for that core processor and one for every other vendor you've got. Let's go ahead and select our core processor just to see for example purposes. So basically, all of these are the notification times that you'll get an email on. You'll get an email 5 days before 4/1, 2 weeks before 4/1, and so on. But this is not your only option. If you come back up here to notification type, you select custom notification sequence. At the very granular individual contract level, you are able to build out the sequence of your choice, still surrounding that date of interest. Again, if you see that green plus sign, you can add something. Let's go ahead and add a notification time. Let's say we want to know about this specific contract 1 day before the date of interest, perhaps maybe 1 week before the date of interest, and so on. You can set these up however you would like. If you do want to get rid of one of these, go ahead and click that X. You can also edit it by clicking this pencil. Again, not your only option. You can select a recurring notification. This is a great tool to use if you have a perpetual agreement that's ongoing with no end date, because all of your regulators still want to see that you're engaged in active contract management, good practices, best practices for your financial institution by still reviewing these terms of your agreements, even if they're ongoing, at least once a year. Let's go ahead and click on this plus sign and go ahead and set a recurrence rule. You have several options: days, weeks, months, years. I always like the standard year. Every January 1st, I like to know, hey, just take a look at the terms of this contract, see if maybe we need to go back to the negotiating table, see if maybe a new regulation was passed, and now our regulator requires there to be additional contract terms in here, and so on. Emails can only be sent at least 1 day in the future, so if you're going to be choosing a yearly recurrence type, and it's January 1st, make sure that you pick January 1st of the next year. You have several options here. You can continue to let this email come out to you forever till the end of time, or you can choose a date to end it on. When you save that there, you'll see your recurrence rules here. Don't think that you're only restricted to one. Again, you can keep hitting this plus sign, setting up as many recurrences as you'd like. Again, one more option. You can choose to be notified on a specific date. It will automatically default to your date of interest, but you're not required to stick with that. You can click on that little calendar button and choose any day in the future that you'd like to receive an email on. Just for the sake of this training, we're going to go ahead and select our standard notification sequence. Click Add, and now your email is saved there. If it's just one recipient, you'll see that person here, or if it's multiple, you'll see that it's going to more than one person. You'll always see the days to the next email coming out to you. And then there are some action items here. You can edit your email or delete it if need be. Once you've got your email set up, go ahead and click that close button. And now you're finally ready to click this arrow, click this check mark, save your work here. Awesome. So what happens when you get an email notification and you know that you want to do something with it? Let's say you want to approve it for auto renewal, or instead you want to go ahead and end that term where it is. You're not going to auto renew. Even if Ncontracts' contract team does services for you, this is something that we pass off to you. Your financial institution is in the best position to know whether or not you have chosen to terminate in that moment or you have chosen to auto-renew, or if anything has changed with that after our team has come in and set up this initially for you. So you get the email. What do you need to do? Click on that link that is in that email, come directly into the summary page, and automatically come into your term area. If you're going to let this auto-renew, go ahead and edit that term again. Come in here and add your next current term. That way the reader of your summary knows quickly what's going on, and they know that they have let this auto-renew, and they'll understand what to do moving forward. Once you've added that current term, go ahead and save that section for me and come all the way back down into your agreement term category, because you do have some work to do here. Go ahead and edit this category, and if you know that you are going to let this auto-renew, come in here and click this approve button. It'll confirm that you want to renew this item. Go ahead and say yes. This is now going to tell the system that it's okay to let these emails keep coming out to you. Something important to note: if you are still within the current term, i.e., we are not past 5/1/2020, but we still know we're going to let this auto-renew, then you need to manually come in here and bump this forward by the next current term. Once you do that, note what happens to your date of interest. It's going to push forward, which means now all your emails are going to push forward. If, however, you are out of the current term, we're past 5/1/2020, clicking that approved button will automatically make that change for you, and the end of current term will automatically update, but only if you are already outside of the current term. One more step. Go ahead and click this email. You know there's an email here because it's a red envelope. Click that guy, open them up. You'll automatically see that the days to next email are far greater than they were before because we've let it auto-renew. But now we need to come in here and click this edit button. What is important to change is this date here. You want your reader of the next email to understand that this did renew, not to panic to think that they missed something and so on. So go ahead and add this date forward 1 year to 5/1/21. Now you're good to go. You don't have to feel like you need to change the recipient to the delivery sequence. It has already done that for you because your date of interest has been pushed forward. Go ahead and save that, close that, and again, hit that green check mark, and now you are good to go. So that is how to update your agreement term and your term category after you've decided to auto-renew. So now we're going to get into some other helpful buttons here in your summary page. Again, you have your C2 button. If you didn't hit that on upload, but you do still want us to not review it, you're going to C2 that contract. You can go ahead and click that don't review button. You also have a lock button. Only admins and editors with delete function can click that. So don't worry about needing to click that. But if it is clicked and you have come into a contract and you see that, make sure you go to your admin user or one of your editors with delete function and you ask them to unlock that contract so you can officially edit any of the summary categories that you have there. What do some of these other buttons do? Your edit all button will literally open up every single summary category for editing. Keep in mind that you do need to save them all or save them individually if you have stuff in there so you don't lose any of your work. You also have your change contract button up here on your right. I like to call this my oops button. Let's say you uploaded the wrong contract by mistake. The PDF was not the correct one. When you click that view document button, that's okay. What also happens if maybe you uploaded a partially executed agreement, but you've finally gotten the fully executed version from your vendor, that's okay too. You can always change out the actual PDF that you will see when you click the view document button. Simply click that change contract button. It's going to bring up another upload dialog box. And go ahead and pick your new agreement. It's going to give you a confirmation that says, are you sure you want to replace it? Tell you what it's changing from and what it is changing to. When you click yes, literally the system will use its big brain on the back end and it will change out what you see next time you click on that view document button. But what happens to what you just switched out? You don't lose that document. It will automatically come down here into your relevant contracts and documents area and save as a supporting document and version 1. This brings me to a great segue here, what are related contracts and documents? When you click this edit button here, you do have the capability to edit these and associate your contract with other contracts in the system. Here at Ncontracts, we like to think of contractual relationships as a family. There's always usually a master contract. Maybe they have a life partner. We'll call them end user license agreement. They both refer to each other, but they can survive on their own. But that master contract rules apply to anything that come after it. All of its children have to follow its rules. That master and that end user license agreement would be peer contracts to one another. Let's say they wanted to expand their family and you get an Exhibit A for a specific product. That Exhibit A will automatically be a subcontract to that master contract. That master contract's rules still apply. It might have some terms that help you calculate the term of that exhibit, and so on. But let's say maybe we also have an Amendment 1 that comes down the line, a new member of the family. That Amendment 1 might mention Exhibit A. Maybe it tells you that Exhibit A doesn't exist anymore. That Amendment 1, again, always will be a subcontract to a master, but in this case, since it mentions Exhibit A, would be a peer to that Exhibit A. How do you associate those contracts with one another? If you want to add a subcontract, again, we've got a plus sign here, so we can add something. Clicking on that plus sign will literally bring you a miniature version of your active filing cabinet with the same search functions, with the same filtration options, and you can simply select your agreement by double-clicking and associate it there. If you do have more than one, feel free to pick these up and drag and drop them, whatever order that you would like. If you do want to get rid of one, that's okay. You can click that X box and delete that subcontract or that peer contract. Supporting documents are a little bit different, though. I want you to think of supporting documents as those family keepsakes, those things that you just keep around for a while. They have something to do with your contractual relationship with your vendor, but they are not contracts themselves. Due diligence documentation, such as W-9, certificates of insurance, things like that, they do not go in the supporting documents area. Those would all go in your vendor module. They are also not contracts. So don't put contracts here unless perhaps they are a red line that is no longer active. Perhaps they're a proposal that is no longer active because you signed this contract. Those are okay to associate as supporting documents, but that's about it. What could be good supporting documents? Invoices, price increase notifications. If it's for a computer software product, maybe specifications for your operating system, and so on. Adding supporting documents is a little bit different because they're not contracts. Go ahead and click that plus sign if you have a supporting document to associate, and it's going to bring up an upload dialog box. That's because we want to point to you again that these are not contracts. So go ahead and pick your supporting document that you see living on your computer. It's upload there. Feel free to name it whatever you like on upload. That's good to go. And then you'll see it associated here. Again, just like with the other supporting related contracts and documents, you can move these around, you can delete them. But unlike the subcontracts, unlike peers, you can always edit the attachment name because it's not a contract. Again, make sure you've saved your work. If you want to keep these things down here, go ahead and click that green check mark. So you've got a contract in here. You're wondering what this alert button is. This alert button has a blue sheet of paper down here. No alert is present. If you see that it is red, that means there has been an alert set there for you, either by Ncontracts staff or by someone at your financial institution. What is an alert? That means that someone wants you to be alerted to something that might be a little off about the contract. Perhaps the contract has, for example, only been partially executed. Perhaps if we are doing services for you here at Ncontracts, we have used a placeholder date. So all of these can be listed here, and they are reportable in the system. It's a good rule of thumb to use these. If you're uploading this contract that you know someone else is going to look at, and they might have to, pay some attention to this contract. Maybe it's missing a page. Maybe you need the fully executed version. Let's say you wanted to get into the system and archive a contract. This contract maybe is no longer effective with your vendor, Perhaps you've got another core processor. Perhaps you're just sunsetting a product. You can archive any agreement. If you don't have the agreement on hand and you don't know where it lives in the filing cabinet, do your search features, find that agreement by either vendor name or contract name, and come in here and click this archive button. Deleting in our system is very scary. We will always force you to archive before you delete. When you click that archive button, if there's anything attached in that related contracts and documents area, don't worry, it will be saved there. You do not lose those documents on archive. If you've linked this to other contracts, all that will happen is that the link to this one will turn red to let you know that that has been archived, but it's not going to be deleted. Go ahead and click yes. It's now going to have you archive per your retention policy. Basically means whatever that is set at, 1 year, 3 year, what have you. 1 year in this instance from the date of archive, you will get an email from the system saying, hey, the archive retention period has passed. Feel free to come in here and delete this contract if you so choose. There is no auto delete function in our system. Let's go ahead and archive this guy. So there he is, he's archived. You know that he's been archived because you can see your date of archive in red here next to a little trash can. But let's say we need to find an archived agreement because contract ended this year because we've been asked by our examiners, how do we get to that archived filing cabinet in the basement? Come up here to the top of your active filing cabinet and click this gear shift. It's going to bring up your advanced search capabilities. Most of them are very intuitive and easy to understand. The only one that might confuse you is the document status. If you come down here and transfer document status to archived only and click search, it will bring up all of the archived agreements in your system. However, if you don't have any, you're not going to see me there. But if you do, you'd be able to select those from here. So you could go into your agreement. You could always restore it from archive. How do you do that? Next to the change contract button lives this more button. It has a restore this contract option. All that will do will literally pull this out of the filing cabinet and it will pull it back into your active filing cabinet. We've got to get back to you really quickly here. Hold on 1 second. And it'll just bring it right back in here, and you'll see that contract active again. So all of the editing capabilities for all of your summary categories will still exist. The contract is back. It's back in your filing cabinet as per usual. Let's say you wanted to delete an agreement, though. Again, deleting in our system is very scary, so we will always force you to archive first. If you want to delete an agreement, go ahead and do that advanced search capability. Search for all documents in an archive status, find your archive document, and go ahead and click that delete button. It will warn you again, though, in this instance, if you have related contracts and documents. Because if there are any supporting documents attached to your contract that you're going to delete, those supporting documents will be deleted as well. Go ahead and click yes. It's going to warn you again. Super scary. We cannot get these contracts back. Cannot get these summaries back if you delete them. Go ahead and click yes, and your contract will now be deleted from the system. So that is essentially your contracts area of NcontractsManager. There's some other cool features and functionalities to this module. I already mentioned that grid view was my favorite way to report on contracts, so we're going to go check that out for a minute. Grid view will literally populate every contract that you have in your system here on the grid view. If you have a lot of contracts in the system, then it's definitely going to take a lot longer to populate. You do have the ability to show and hide columns. Create that template that you want to see over and over and over again. Anything literally that you have been able to summarize about your contract, almost anything that you could want to know will be able to be checked and selected as a field here. If you do not want to see a field, go ahead and uncheck the check mark. If you do want to see one, go ahead and check that mark right there. Once you've got your columns set up the way you want, come up here to the Save Columns button. You'll then have the option to name your layout. You then have the option to select it as your default layout. That will be the layout you see every time you log in and click on that grid view. And unlike your dashboard, which is unique to you, you can set up a grid view that is a public layout. which means anyone at your financial institution can also run that grid view. Let's say you logged in, you went to grid view, and you have multiple favorites set up. By clicking this favorites button, you can go ahead and switch between any layout that you like. All of your favorites will be saved here. Again, you can delete them if needed. I will point out that any header that has a little funnel up here can be filtered, which means you can go ahead and filter your view. Also, if you were to go ahead and export this to Excel, you would be able to literally see all of these tables as pivot tables, so they're really easy to search throughout. If you do want to go ahead and export it, go ahead and click that Export to Excel button. I always recommend sticking with exporting to Excel. Exporting to PDF is a little less manageable in that you do not have those pivot table options. So that's essentially your grid view, but there are other report options available to you here. Some of these reports are the only ones that you can run in this reporting area, and you can't get this information off of grid view, such as the contract email report. This will show you all of the emails that are contract related coming out of the system to you in a given date range. You'll have your contract termination report here. It will show you the end dates of all of your contracts within a given date range. Contract upload is also a handy one. Show you all of those contracts you've uploaded to the system within a given date range. The alert report will show you all of the alerts that are still outstanding that you've yet to go in there and clear, that we just talked about in a given division, agreement type, in for a date range if you want to get that specific. You can also check out contract notifications by recipient. By choosing all of your users, you'll be able to see any emails that are supposed to go to them. And if you are an editor or an admin user, you'll be able to see when your other users have last logged in. And lastly is our support button. This will automatically bring you to our new support site that has a knowledge base built out full of articles, helpful videos, and recordings of our webinars. So that's basically your NcontractsManager module. If you guys have any questions, I'll give you a couple minutes. Feel free to go ahead and use the questions feature of your GoToWebinar dashboard. You guys submit your questions and I'll answer them here for you. All right, well, it looks like we're good for questions today. Don't feel like we're leaving you in the weeds, though. If you do have any questions at any point in time, feel free to submit any support tickets with questions to support@ncontracts.com. Go ahead and shoot us an email at clientsuccess@ncontracts.com, and we'd all be happy to help. Thanks again for tuning in today. You will see that there is a user guide attached here as a handout, so feel free to download that. It's a great, handy guide. Oh, we've got questions coming in. All right, Shannon, what is the point of the summary in the agreement terms section? So that summary area, you will have obviously several different categories, and the point of each of these categories for you to summarize information is so you can go into that contract, pull relevant key data points out that have to do with the subject matter of the label of this category. So let's say you wanted to know when you had to pay your vendor, is payment terms net 30? Are invoices due by a certain date? What are those late fees? Those are hot button items that you might want to quickly be able to see that you can just fill out in your relevant summary categories. In terms of primary purpose, that's where you're going to want to put things that your vendor is actually providing you. What products? What services? What frequency? Is it a specific branch of your financial institution? And so on. Again, we kind of briefly went over term. That's literally the natural life cycle of your contract. When does it naturally expire? Does it auto-renew? How to avoid auto-renewal, and so on. These categories are customizable to you, so all of you might have different categories besides primary purpose and term, those that never change. So definitely give those a gander and look at those things that you might want to be telling any of your readers at your financial institution or any of your examiners that want to see a summary, want to know what kind of provisions are in your contract are in these summary categories. All right, Bill, will there be a training session on workflow features in the near future? I can absolutely set up a workflow training. That's a great idea. So look for that in June. We do have our webinar scheduled for May, pretty set in stone, but in June I will make sure that I do a workflow webinar. Susanna, where do you find the user guide? If you go down to the bottom of your GoToWebinar dashboard there, you'll see handouts. There should be one there that says Onboarding and Beyond in NcontractsManager. That's how to grab that guide. If you, for some reason, do not see that guide there, just go ahead and shoot us an email at clientsuccess@ncontracts.com, and we'll make sure that we get that to you. Shannon, you've got another one. Does the report only pull the summary section and not the agreement term section? So in Grid View, you are literally able to select all of your summary categories as column options. So you can select to see all of the different fields in agreement terms. You can select to see your GLBA, your price increases, your payment terms, all of that good stuff. So you can literally build out a grid view report that shows every field that you have summary information in, and then filter those out as needed, and filter them out by vendor if you just want to see those fields for a certain vendor, and so on. The summary report, if you pull a contract summary, go check one of those out. So let's say I was looking at one that did have some summary information in it. This one does not, but we can go ahead and check out. We've got one in here. Well, let's say there were summary terms filled out here. If you came out to print a contract summary, it's going to ask if you want to print it. Go ahead and print that. It's going to literally bring up a PDF version that has all of your summary categories here. Any category that has information in it, you'll see all of that information in a really easy to read, categorized PDF. You'll also be able to see at the bottom anything that's attached to it as a master, peer, sub, or supporting document. You'll also be able to see any alerts that are there and your contract term, and all of the things that you did to tag that in the beginning. The vendor, the contract name, that contract date, and any division assignment. You'll also be able to see responsible parties at the top in the header of that summary page. It looks like we're done with questions. Again, if you have any more in the future, feel free to submit a support ticket to us at support@ncontracts.com, or go ahead and send an email to clientsuccess@ncontracts.com, and I will get back to you as soon as I can with whatever answers I can give, and I'd be happy to help. Thanks again for joining in.